Hi guys, welcome back to Law of Attraction. I just wanted to go over a thought pattern, a process, something quite quickly, looking at the title, that is, it's projection, not reflection. Okay, what do I mean by this? Well, I was talking to a client the other day and she was feeling as if people were thinking things about her, negative things about her, okay, based on kind of things that have happened to her in her past. Often when we're children, when we don't have the sense or capability to question what is being told to us, what's being directed at us. So you could have had a volatile parent who was emotionally immature. I mean, basically, if you're a millennial, you probably did, or a Gen Xer or upwards, you probably did, which means that we have parents who reflected their bullshit. Projected their bullshit onto us, okay? As a child, you haven't got the conscious awareness to recognize that that is a projection, okay? And so you believe that the parent is reflecting some dysfunctional, messed up part of yourself back at you. And as a child, you'll internalize these things. And these create these very deep abandonment, rejection wounds, inferiority complexes, and very, very sort of common triggers within most of us that get triggered on a daily basis by kind of natural circumstances. So for instance, my client hasn't been very well and she's had to take time off work. This triggered a feeling of inferiority within her, and also a fear that she was going to be rejected by her boss, that they were going to see that she was incompetent, incapable, and they were going to judge her for that. Now, where the hell did that come from? Because actually she hasn't got any evidence to suggest that her manager is going to do that at all. Her manager is somebody who's emotionally mature and is actually her manager is very emotionally mature and is very supportive actually about what's going on at this time. And so despite all of the physical evidence as to what's happening in actuality in the moment, she's being triggered somewhere. So where's this trigger come from? Now, often what happens when you're triggered, it's not the instance that is causing the problem. It's not the thing that's actually happening that's caused the problem. It is that has triggered some deep wound from our past, from our history. So the first thing that's really important to recognize is that actually this has nothing to do with the situation you're experiencing right now. So when we're triggered, we need to recognize that there is a wound that tends to have started in childhood, normally from parents, maybe from school bullies, possibly a teacher, somebody that you looked at as being, an important person who was to be listened to. And unfortunately, you have integrated the baggage of that individual. So, for instance, if you've got an emotionally mature parent, they may respond to you in not the kindness that you should have received. They may have projected their own insecurities, their own inferiority, whatever, onto you, and you would have internalized this as a child. Now, when we do this, we end up integrating other people's baggage into ourselves, and it's stuff that shouldn't be there. And so it creates this dysfunction within our sense of self, within our ego, within our personal identity. Now, we bring this baggage in due to a lack of knowledge in childhood. But what's really important to recognize is that as we get older, this old identity baggage bullshit of the projections of other people continually gets triggered in us. And every time you have a trigger, this isn't something to worry about. This is an opportunity to heal, okay? A trigger is literally something saying to you, hi, there's something unhealed here that makes you feel like crap. Can we deal with it now? And every time you ignore it by doing coping mechanisms, coping strategies that are dysfunctional, like drinking, smoking, sexual validation from other people, whatever the shit is, showing your ass on Instagram to get likes, whatever it is, no judgment, whatever it is that you do as part of your coping mechanism, all that's doing is numbing it. It's not actually fixing it. How can we fix a trigger? Well, one is recognize that you're triggered. Okay, then recognize that trigger is coming up as a result of something that's happened in the past, not something that's happening in the present. So you need to detach from the instance that's happening in that moment. So for instance, instead of being like, my manager's a dick when they're not actually being a dick, recognize that there's a trigger happening here that's something related to childhood. Now, when we spoke about this with my client, we had a little look back into the childhood, and I was like, whoa, what were your parents like when you were off sick? What were your parents like when you were off sick? Did they call you a skiver? Did they say to you, there's nothing wrong with you, and send you to school even when you were unwell? Was there a feeling of neglect? Was there some admonishment of your lack of competency or strength? Yeah, were you told to pull it together? Yeah? You think about what your parents were like with you when you were sick, or whatever that trigger is, and you'll often see that you were treated in a way almost with contempt, often, when you've had a traumatic childhood, or, you know, an emotionally immature parent, whatever you want to call it, same fucking difference. So your emotionally immature parent would have projected their shit onto you. Okay, now they would have projected that they were, you know, that they felt like they were a skiver, that they felt that they should pull themselves together, that they felt that mental illness wasn't a real thing, that they made themselves go to work when they were sick regardless. They project their behaviors onto you, and as a child, you take that as a reflection of yourself. And so you internalize it and you integrate it as part of your childhood and as part of your identity. So what we need to recognize is that other people's rejections of us is actually projections of them, okay? When your parent is rejecting you for being a skiver, yeah, it's not because you're, as a child, there's something dysfunctional and inherently wrong with you. It's because they're projecting their own inabilities, their own triggers, their own bullshit onto you. As a child, we don't have the consciousness to recognize that, but as an adult, we must recognize that, because these triggers will keep coming up until you heal them, okay? And actually, it's a dysfunctional part of yourself, so you really should heal it, because you're carrying baggage that belongs to other people, most likely your parents, okay? All parents fuck us up. Even when they're nice parents, they still fuck you up. So what we need to recognize is that their projection, okay, is not a reflection of us. It's all about them. When we recognize that other people's rejections of us is about them, we can stop getting triggered with those deep abandonment and rejection wounds, because actually it's nothing to do with us. The reason why they don't love us or like us, or they're treating us in a bad manner in that moment, is nothing to do with us. Which means that when they try to pass you this baggage, we go, nah, it's good. You carry that one, okay? You carry that one, mum. You carry that one, dad. That's your shit. Not carrying that, okay? And or your brother or your sister, your aunt, your caretaker, whoever the fuck looked after you and fucked you up, okay? So when we can learn this, we can detach from the dysfunction that we have made part of our identities, okay? If you want to learn more about that, go and have a look at my previous, the penultimate recent video after this one, which is dealing with the ego and something along those lines. So when we're triggered, the present situation causes a reaction that is related to the past event. We often have an overreaction to this present issue due to this. It is really vital that we stop that fight or flight reaction and that response so we can learn to respond and not react. Okay? When we're triggered, we go down into our root brain. This is the lower functioning animal part of our brain. It is not wise. It's not sensible. It hasn't got great insight. It's just like, oh, I've been offended. What can I do? Yeah? Caveman territory. We don't want him running the show. Because he's great when you need him. Dinosaur, brilliant. Saber-toothed tiger, awesome. You know, your manager might have just said something that was nothing to do with what you're being triggered by. You really don't want to be coming in heavy-handed and being like, oh, reminds me of childhood, offended, attack. Because this is what happens when we get triggered. So in that moment, the most important thing is we pull ourselves out of that fight or flight response so we can respond and not react. I'm very lively this morning. Sorry, guys. I'm not sorry. I'm amazing. You love it. If you don't love it, go away. So, always remove yourself from the situation if you can, okay? Recognize when you're triggered. This is your responsibility to do. It's not to go around like everybody these days are going around being like, I am triggered. I am offended. You must hold a safe space for me. You cannot say these things. No. We cannot police other people for our triggers and our responses. Your feelings, your emotions, your behaviors, your reactions are your responsibility. And if you think that you can go around trying to police the whole world with the offence police that's going on at the moment, you are in cloud cuckoo land and you are a fascist, okay? Just saying that now. So your triggers are your responsibility even. Your triggers are your responsibility. So if you're triggered, take yourself away. Go to the toilet. Go and take some time away. Go and do some deep breaths. Those slow, deep breaths with your eyes closed will pull you out of that fight or flight response, out of that autonomic nervous system response, will pull you back into the parasympathetic, which means that you crawl from this root brain, the basal ganglia, back up to the front, the prefrontal cortex, my little thing on my head there. The prefrontal cortex, this is where all that higher functioning thought patterns happen, where you can choose how you respond instead of reacting in caveman. Okay, we don't do that. Okay, so once you've done that, you can then take some time to journal or question, or you can do it out loud, or you can talk to yourself in the mirror, whatever way works for you, okay, to ask yourself these questions. So step 1, stop, take a breath. 2, step away from the situation. Number 3, ask yourself what just happened. Why are you triggered and what are you feeling? Okay, where is it in your body? It could be a tightening in your throat. It could be hotness in your cheeks. It could be flipping in your tummy. You could have a thumping headache. Your heart could be pounding. Your mouth could be dry. Whatever it is, notice where it is. Notice how it feels. What emotion is coming up? You will have a physical response and an emotional response, and you will have thought patterns. Okay, so notice these things that are coming up. Next step, when have you felt like this before? Go back. Keep going back. Well, that time that my boyfriend dumped me. That time when my boss said he needed to talk to me. That time when I clipped that car. That time when that lady stole my shopping cart. It'll keep going on, keep going on, keep going on. And you'll keep going back until you find that first time. The time that you can really remember as far back as that time that you had a tummy ache and your mum sent you to school anyway when you were 4. You know, and it'll go back. Keep going back as far back as you can remember. So when have you felt like that before? And then I want you to think about that time. Think about that primary time, the first time that you can remember, as far back as you can, with the most influential people that you can find, okay? Because the woman stealing your shopping cart isn't the important one. Your mum ignoring you when you were 4 is the important one, okay? So think about what happened. Think about why this happened, okay? Who was there? What did this person do? What should they have done? Okay. Now, in that moment, you will come up with a response of like, well, that's not what I would do for my children. If I was in that situation, I would have wanted, well, you were in that situation, but if you were the parent, you would have treated your child like that. You would have said this. You would have reaffirmed them in this way. You would have treated them with love that way. And in that point, you can reparent your inner child and heal the trigger. Because once it's been felt, it's healed. Once the inner child has been heard, it is no longer in the subconscious, it's now in the conscious. And when you're acting from the conscious, this stops you acting from this unconscious shadow side that rules your life from trauma that you're not aware of and from dysfunctional behaviors that you've integrated as a result of other people's dysfunctional behavior. That's all I got to say. Mic drop. Okay, I love you. If you like this, leave me a comment, subscribe, do whatever. I love you very much. Good luck with your healing and take care of yourself.